like to give everybody out there listening a very warm White Cat welcome, because you're tuned in to the White Cat Outdoors podcast.
Hey everybody, episode 40, White Cat Outdoors podcast. This may be the last time I'm bringing you guys in. Frank currently is coming back from Alaska, due to be in, when you guys are listening to this in podcast world, tomorrow. And so hopefully we'll have him back on for episode 41, giving a rundown of his Alaska trip. But tonight, you got me, Tom, bringing you in. I'm sitting right next to my brother Nick.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And we are 1 week away in Pennsylvania from opening day of deer season.
Yeah, New York and Ohio is less than a week.
Yeah. So I'm pretty stoked. I've been dreaming about it. Really, I did have a dream about deer hunting last night. It's pretty wild.
That's all. Right now I'm doing pretty much nothing at work, just doing a lot of drilling, mindless work, and I am off in La La Land just thinking about bucks. That's all that's going through the head.
Yeah. But for you new hunters out there, hunting's great, but there's work to be done if you're successful and you do kill a deer. And that's what we're talking about tonight.
That's right, Tom. That's what we're talking about. We're going to talk about what you do after you let that arrow fly, or
I think let's start it right when you let the arrow fly.
that's a good thing. We weren't going to do that, but this is so. I mean, this can be applied for rifle as well. But yeah, from the time you release your projectile, if you will, what do you do? Because there's a lot of new guys out there hunting, maybe jumping in the woods for the first time, or maybe they're a few seasons in, but they've never connected. So that's a good idea, Tom. Why don't we start from there?
It just came right to me. I was like, we're talking about, what to do after, you shoot your deer, but there's a lot of work to be done in between shooting the deer and finding the deer. So step one, okay, you release your projectile and your deer takes off, and you're like, what the heck just happened? Your mind's going crazy. You're
Adrenaline
shaking
dump.
with adrenaline. Yeah, it's an insane feeling, and that's why we get out there.
That's why we get outside.
That is why we get outside. But me personally, especially with an arrow, okay?
Let's just, for the sake of conversation stuff, let's just focus on archery, because that's what we're getting into here.
Yeah. So first thing I do is try and gather my thoughts, watch exactly where that deer ran, listen for a crash, see if you can see him fall or anything like that. If he gets out of your sight and you don't see him go down, the best thing to do is wait. At least 15-20 minutes before even climbing out of your stand.
I can agree on that. Before you even get down, sit there at least 20 minutes.
So let the woods calm down. You calm down because your adrenaline's going crazy. You're not thinking rationally. You're just super stoked that you just let one fly.
Well, for me, take that 20 minutes and soak in that feeling. Don't rush through any of this, because it's a magical time. It really is. So after you take that shot, like Tom said, pay close attention to where it goes. Pay attention to where your arrow hits. That's a big thing too. But watch where the animal goes. If you don't see it go down, you have to make a mark in your head exactly where you last saw that deer. And then take the time, text your hunting buddy that's going to help you on this next adventure. And Tom will bring you back in.
Another good thing to look for, I don't know how many of you hunters out there know this, but the tail is a very big indicator.
It's a telltale sign.
Telltale sign. So here's some things.
Maybe that's where that came from.
Very, very well could be. So another telltale sign is watch for a mule kick. If you release your arrow and you see that deer mule kick, there's a 95% chance that your arrow stuck him somewhere. You can't always see where your arrow hit because they're moving it. Nowadays, new bows 320 feet per second or faster, so you're not really going to be able to watch it. But watch for that mule kick. Next thing you're going to watch for is the tail. if the tail is sticking straight up, a lot of the times that deer was not hit or not hit very hard. If the tail is straight down, then most of the time you made a solid hit on that deer. And if the tail is down and fluttering, then you know you smoked them.
I do want to just throw out a disclaimer. If you see a deer run away, tail up, that does not 100% mean you missed. You still need to make your best efforts to see, recover your arrow and see if there's any sign of a hit.
Yeah,
I just want to throw that out there. Yes, most of the time, if it runs away with its tail up, you better start praying, crossing your fingers or something, because it's not typically the way it goes down.
And anytime you pull the trigger or touch off your release, regardless of whether you're 99% sure you missed, you still have to go down and look for blood, look for hair, look for your arrow, just so you can totally solidify, okay, yes, I did miss. Because I've heard of people where they see a deer running and they just pull up and shoot, and they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't watch him drop, I missed him. Well, then you don't really know if you missed him because you never went and actually looked. He could just still be running, and then he dies 100 yards later, and you have no idea. So anytime you shoot, it's a great idea to still go down and investigate after you wait your 15, 20 minutes. So take it from the top. You shoot, you watch for the mule kick, you watch the tail, you watch the last place where you saw that deer, and you mark in your head by which tree you saw him disappear. You listen for a crash, all that good stuff, and now you wait. 15, 20 minutes goes by, climb down, go to where the deer was standing. Usually, you'll see some roughed up leaves where he was standing and then took off running. So, look around there. You want to be very cautious about it. You don't want to just go stomping all over the place, because there could be a little bit of blood that you step on or kick leaves over, and then you miss it. So watch every step you take, watch the ground, make sure you're not stepping on any sign. And if you can find your arrow, if you got, bright pink bubbly blood, there's a real good chance that you double lunged him and he's not very far. If, I've shot deer where, you see the arrow go in, it looks like a good shot, and you can see blood literally squirting out of the exit hole or the entrance hole.
I've had that too.
That's a pretty good idea that it's a heart shot. When it's just pumping blood out, you can see it coming out their nose and mouth,
I watched him drop before he got out of sight on that one.
That's how you know you smoked them. But if none of that happens and you find your arrow covered in pink bubbly blood, good chance you lunged them, and shouldn't be too hard of a track job. If you find your arrow and it's got green goopy crap on it, and literal crap, then it's a gut shot, and
it's a dead deer. It is a dead deer, but
back out for 24 hours. You'll have people telling you, oh, you only need to give it 8 hours, 12 hours. No, 24 hours, because when a deer's gut shot, typically it's only going to go 100 yards and bed down. If you don't disturb that deer, you're going to find it 100 yards from where you shot it. If you wait 8 hours and go back and kick him up 100 yards from where you shot, he's going to get another surge of adrenaline and be gone, and you're going to have a hell of a time finding that deer. My dad, a couple years ago, actually this was more like probably 10 years ago, shot this really nice buck, big, heavy 9-point, and he gut shot it, and I think they waited 8 hours. Well, he shot it in the morning. It was first light, basically.
Yeah.
And they waited till that evening and kicked it up 100 yards from where my dad had shot, and it took off, and they're like, shit, well, now what do we do? And that deer ran and ran and ran probably 400 yards. I don't think my dad would have found it if it wasn't for our buddy, because me and Nick were actually at a football game playing while my dad was tracking this deer. And on our way home, my dad's buddy called and said, hey, I just seen this really nice buck come out of the block where you were hunting, and he was acting super, super lethargic and just slow, and he didn't look so good. And my dad's like, well, I hit a buck there and kicked him up, and they figured out, times matched up, and we're pretty certain that that's the buck my dad had hit. So my dad went back the next morning with that buddy, and he showed him, this is exactly where I seen the deer come out, and this is where I saw him go into the woods on the other side of the road. So they went in there, and he wasn't 200 yards off the side of the road. But like you asked my dad, I never had my buddy call me and say, hey, I seen your buck cross the road. My dad said I would never cross the road to track that deer. Like, it's crazy how far they can go if you kick up that second adrenaline rush after they're bedded down. So if you find your arrow and it's covered in guts, 24 hours, the majority of the time you'll find that deer bedded down 100 yards from where you hit it. If you find your arrow and it's got like brownish blood, I guess.
Really a dark, rich red, almost brown, yeah.
Yeah, then that's probably a liver shot.
That's also a dead deer.
It's a dead deer, but you want to give it time. I mean, if you shoot it in the evening, let it go in the morning. Let it go till the morning. I mean, 8 hours, you're safe on a liver shot. Just a little side story. Frank on the podcast, you know him, shot a buck, liver shot. We gave it 4 hours, or probably less than that, probably 3 hours, and went back and looked for it. And, we were shining down on the ground, following good blood. And then, we'd shine up and look, and we saw his buck bedded down with his head still up. So we immediately shut off the light and backed out. Went back the next day, deer was dead right where we saw it laying down. But the tricky thing with a liver shot is you'll have really, really good blood a lot of the time. This isn't every time, but a lot of times you'll have really, really good blood for about 100 yards. And then it's like someone flipped the switch and it's off. Well, typically when that switch is flipped and it stops dumping, your deer's not far from there.
But basically what that means is there's not much blood left in the system to bleed.
Yeah.
That's a hard concept to think about, but typically once they stop bleeding, it is truly because there's not much blood in the system to be bleeding out and showing you, like you said, they're not far.
Yeah. So if you're pretty confident it was a liver shot and you lose blood, don't give up, because your deer's probably, within the next 75 to 100 yards. So with that being said, those are the mishaps that you don't want. Say you find your arrow, pink bubbly, lung shot, heard your deer crash. I just like to make sure I give it an hour or two.
Here's something I live by, because I'm pretty good with tracking and stuff. And the one thing I live by when it comes to tracking deer is if it's dead now, it's going to be dead later. So what I mean by that is basically like if you shoot a buck and you watch it crash or you hear it crash, it's dead. It's going to die. There's no need to go running over there right away and potentially booger something up. You give it 2 hours and it is going to be more than dead. You're not going to have any problems. Like if you watch it crash, you still want to approach it with caution, and just keep your head. What we like to do is you have somebody watching blood, and there's always somebody with a weapon of the season looking ahead, basically. So you don't want to just stay looking at the ground and walk up on this deer. So have somebody looking ahead, making sure that once you get up to the deer, it is dead. If it's bedded down and it's like got its head up, you got to back out quietly.
Yeah. So that's if things go right. But there's a couple tricks we can talk about. If, you hit your deer in a gut shot and you don't, you jump the gun, you kick them up, and now you have no idea where this buck's going to be. A grid search, if you can get a group of buddies together, is probably your best bet on any track job where you lose blood and you're kind of stuck. You don't want to give up, especially if you know the deer's dead. So get, the more people, the better, and just space them out, every 20 yards or so.
You want to be in eyesight. So if you're in some thick stuff, you may have to break that down. You have to be within eyesight of everybody or the guys next to you, just so you know you're not missing anything.
Yeah, and then you basically just, walk and just keep walking, cover as much ground as you possibly can. And, when you get to where you can't walk anymore, you shift your grid over and make another loop. And
Just keep combing, yeah.
Yeah. That's basically the best way to do it. Hopefully, you practice shooting your bow, you're confident with your shots, you're not taking shots you're not confident with. And, every time you go out, it's a clean, ethical shot, but things happen, especially in archery season. The deer can take a step, or, you miss your mark by a couple inches and you're into the front shoulder. That's another thing we should talk about. Front shoulder shot.
It's like a single lung.
Yeah. There's kind of a toss up on this one, because there's two theories that it's controversial, I guess. One theory is if you shoot your deer in the shoulder, you're going to know it, because you're going to hear a loud crack and you're going to see most of your arrow shaft sticking out of that deer's shoulder. So you'll know when you shoot it in the shoulder. Now, some people will tell you get on the deer as soon as possible, and if you can access dogs, to use dogs. And what you want to do is just push that deer and bump that deer as many times as you can, and just keep pushing them. Don't let the wound coagulate and, clot up, and just keep pushing that deer until eventually he'll either be out of gas or out of blood. And then the other option is kind of a complete 180, where you shoot them, you see that it's a shoulder shot, probably just one lung. There's another theory that says if you let that deer bed down and lay there, then the blood will pool up in his lungs and he'll drown in his own blood. Which, I don't know. I've been on a couple shoulder shots where we're unsuccessful. But that's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to feel it out, I guess. We don't have enough experience to talk about that, which I think is okay to admit. We're not going to sit here and try and preach something that we don't really have much experience with. So take both of those scenarios, and I mean, if you had them work either way, let us know. But yeah, I guess I don't want to go too far into something.
No, I'm just saying, I've never personally shot a deer in the shoulder, but I've been on track jobs with people that have, and those are the two scenarios that I've been told to try. Either give it time, let it lay for, if you shoot in the evening, go back the next morning, or if you shoot in the morning, go back at dark, or I've heard get on it right away. So it's just something to throw out there. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what's right, what's wrong way to do it, because personally I don't know. That's just one that you kind of got to, like Nick said, feel out and
decide what you want to do.
Yeah. From what I understand, I mean, I've shot two deer that we haven't found, and it's a rough feeling. You lose sleep over it. It sucks. But the biggest thing is just keep going. Don't ever, give up until you're certain that deer is, still alive and well.
Yeah. So let's speed forward, and we've, you recover your deer. I don't know if it's necessary to really get into like the actual gutting of the deer. I mean, basically, real quick, like you just, I don't think it's really necessary to go through that.
Well, there's a couple tricks. I don't think we'd have to go through the entire process, but anybody that's gut a deer has probably punctured the stomach with their pocket knife. And, that's a stench from hell. It's awful. It'll gag you. The best way to avoid that, in my opinion, is with a gut hook.
Or a blunt tip knife, too.
Yeah. So, you just poke your incision hole down at the bottom of the stomach, kind of just north of the groin. And Yeah, make your little hole and then slip your gut
all the way up
hook
to
in
the
there.
sternum. Yeah.
All the way up to the sternum. I've heard of people like cutting the rib cage in half. I don't exactly know what the
It just makes
point
it
is.
easier access. So you're not shoulder deep, getting the esophagus and everything. I mean, I can see why it would be done, but that's not
It's
how
just-
I was taught. So it's just
yeah.
not how I do it.
Seems like a lot of extra work.
A lot of math.
Well, there's a lot of math.
But anyway, so get it gut and get it back to the barn.
Tags on it.
Yeah, obviously, we don't have to get that crazy. Butt out tools work pretty nice.
Yeah, you just insert them, give them a
Couple
twist,
twists
and pull them out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
works
no one
pretty
likes
nice.
cutting the butt out. That's
No, those are a pretty handy tool. I know some guys say that, get in there. Well, I've done it both ways. Butt out works really well.
yeah. Would recommend.
Yeah. So the main thing we wanted to actually
We're
cover.
not even getting sponsored to say that, so that's how you know it's good.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
But the main thing we wanted to talk about tonight was actually at this point now. So that was a prelude that Tom wanted to do, which I agree was good. It was a good idea. So now you've decided that you do not want to take your deer to the local processor. You want to do it yourself, which is just how we do it. And that's why we wanted to talk about it, because getting your deer is it's expensive to process.
Especially if you want to do like the little smokies and jerky and stuff,
Yeah,
which
adds
most
up
people
quick.
do.
And the other thing is, I think, for me, I feel like every hunter should experience processing the game at least once.
And you got to drink your cup of blood.
No, that's not a thing. It's not.
You don't think?
No.
No, I've never done it. I've heard of people doing it.
It's not a thing.
It's a thing.
It's
People
a thing
do
that
it.
people talk about, but it's not a thing.
I'm sure people do it.
Yeah.
Have you ever done it? Let us know. It's kind of badass, actually.
Yeah, well, I didn't do it. I'm not going to. But
No, me
anyway,
neither.
so you've decided, I think processing a deer kind of brings the whole thing full circle. So anyway, so we all do our own processing, Frank included, but he's not here to talk about it, so just take our word for it. First, before we get into how to process deer at home, me and Tom are each going to kind of run through our top three tools. If you decide you want to process at home, top three tools that we feel are important to have to do the whole process, besides knives, because if you're into hunting, you probably have the knives. So I'll let Tom go through your top three things that you would want and why.
I have a couple more than three.
Top three, though.
Well, what we have.
No, not what we have. I want the top three things you think for somebody new that wants to get into processing. What are the first three most important things
Yeah,
you
that's what I'm
think?
getting
Okay.
at. I'm saying what we have in our deer processing station is top of the line. It's not necessary, but what we have, and it makes it a hell of a lot easier, is a pulley system, like a wench.
Or is this? We can talk about what we have, but I'm saying I want the first three things somebody should go out and buy. Is a crane or a hoist one of them that you're thinking?
A way to hang your deer.
Okay.
But I'm just saying how we do it, and what works really well for us
Okay.
is we have a wench screwed or bolted into the ceiling of our garage with a remote where you can just lower the hooks down, hook your deer up, and hoist it back up. You don't have to do any lifting or anything. You just drive your truck right up to it, hook your deer up, and lift it up. Because I've processed deer on a tailgate, and it's
Processed them in the snow.
it's not a good time. So a way to hang your deer is probably, the best. Whether it be a meat pole where, it's just a T stake in the ground, concreted into the ground with, some ropes and some S hooks.
Yeah, and you can multi-purpose things like a gantry crane. If you're into working on cars and have like a gantry crane for motors, that would work just as well. But like Tom said, something to hang the deer from
Yeah,
to get it off the ground.
that makes a huge difference. Second thing is a bone saw for, cutting through the legs. I don't eat the shins of the deer, and it makes it a lot easier to.
We can though. I learned this year you can do ossobuco with them from Hunt Chef.
Yeah, but that's like the calf muscle, isn't it?
Kinda.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you would get the hide off with the hoof still on there.
Well, yeah, maybe not down that far. Maybe just
Yeah, that's
use,
what I
you
mean.
could use the bone for like a bone broth, but that's about it.
Yeah, I use a bone saw to cut the hoof and ankle off, so you have
Okay,
somewhere to
okay.
pull the hide off of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a hanging system, a bone saw, and a grill because you're gonna want to eat some while you're processing.
It's good. So you're actually going to get top six because I have three other things that I believe are very important. So not necessarily more important than Tom's, but or I feel are very important to make your entry into processing easy. First, a large, well lit cutting board. So some style, like I mean, they sell them at any outdoor store. Usually, there's cutting boards, but you can get much larger ones from like lem.com, which is like a meat processing website. Weston is another one. Hobart. There's a bunch of different places you can get a cutting board, but a large cutting board in a well lit area will cause or solve a lot of headaches. You'll be able to see what you're working with. You're not making a mess everywhere. They're easy to
Not cutting
clean.
your fingers because you
Not-
can't see.
Yeah, not cutting your fingers. So a well-lit cutting station, cutting board is one of the things on my list. Number 2 is a vacuum packer. I think that is one of the best ways to preserve your meat after you're done processing. It's super easy. The bags are pretty cheap. You can pack your burgers, your steaks, your sausages, anything can be packed with the vacuum packer, and then they just last so much longer in the freezer. So that's 2. And number 3 for me, I think, is a grinder. Whether it's a hand grinder or, there's any style grinder, like meat grinder, will make your processing easier because I don't know anybody that doesn't do some sort of ground, whether it's they turn it into jerky, they turn it.
Why are you turning ground and jerky?
Jared Larson does squirt jerky.
Really?
Yeah.
Never even heard of it.
Take ground, and you spray it on sheets, cut it into slices that look like jerky, and do it. And they dehydrate it that way. It's much easier to bite into, and it's not so like tough. So jerky, snack sticks, obviously burger for meatloaf and hamburgers, and I mean like nobody cuts everything into steaks that I know of. So I think a grinder would be really nice addition to your kit. So we'll just run back through the 6 things. A way to hang it, a bone saw. What was your
A grill.
and a grill because you're gonna want to eat. Gotta eat. Well lit cutting station, grinder, and a vacuum sealer. Those are all great things to have. Obviously, guys in the mountains didn't have all that stuff, but we're just going through the things that'll make your life that much easier. So, with using those tools, let's start with Tom. You've got your
I
deer.
think we should talk about some other accessories that make it a hell of a lot easier because there's some other ones that
Okay.
aren't my top 3. 5-gallon
Okay.
buckets.
Okay.
You're going to want a 5-gallon bucket because...
So, what honorable mentions?
Yes, honorable mentions. Not top 3. You can do without them, but... You can do without any of them, I guess, but...
Yeah, you could start eating it right there in the field.
Yeah, but 5-gallon buckets because that's, you don't want to throw your scraps in like the legs and
Scraps.
in the 5-gallon bucket. Another little trick here is a lot of times when you hoist your deer up and get it hanging, if you hang it, hind end up,
Which is
with the nose down,
the right way to do it.
Yeah, I'll just say it. If you're hanging it from the head, then you're doing it wrong. You got to hang it from the hind legs. I don't get it. People do it, but it's wrong.
The other thing is people don't cut the ankles off before they hang them.
Yeah.
You cut we'll get into that
Yeah.
after Tom gets into the honorable mentions, how we do that part.
When you hoist the deer up by its hind end, some blood's going to come out of the nose and the mouth. So you put your 5-gallon bucket underneath that, catch all the blood so it's not getting all over your floor. Big sheet of cardboard or plywood works good too to put underneath the bucket because it does get messy. So you're going to want that. And then another thing is what we use is a torch to burn all the hair off of the meat because nobody wants to bite into your sausage and get a hair in their mouth.
No, that's one thing we're really good about is really clean meat.
Yeah, we do have clean, hairless meat, and
Yeah.
it's something we pride ourselves in.
Yeah, anybody that is into doing this, you should pride yourself in nice, clean, hairless meat.
Yeah, it's a big bragging right of mine, honestly.
For sure.
But so,
And people come to us for that.
yeah, or hairless meat.
Yeah, our friends come over and they say, hey, we want your help because we know you do such a good job.
Yeah. So we'll get into how we utilize that torch here in a minute, but I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here, see if there's anything else that...
If you're into
makes it-
jerky, smokers or dehydrators are nice.
Slicers.
Meat slicers,
But like I said, these are just
honorable
honorable
mentions.
mentions. They're not necessities.
They didn't get the
but-
Grammy, but they were at the event.
Right. Other than that, I think you're ready to start cutting into it.
Well, don't you want to get it hung first, Tom?
Oh, yes.
So you back your truck
Well,
in.
you're going to be... Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, back your truck in. I'm going to run you through how we do it because I don't know how other people do it, so I can't speak for them.
We'll just talk about how we do it, and they can apply it to the tools they have.
And we do probably quite a handful of deer a year between all of us and
Friends and
up
family.
at the big farm and friends and family.
I
that
mean,
bring
we're
their deer.
easily, I would say, a dozen to a dozen and a half a year.
Yeah, we're by no means, butchers, but
We do pretty good. We were
yeah.
taught by journeyman butchers, so
Oh yeah, well I'm saying we're not a butcher company.
yeah,
Like,
don't come
that
to us with your
volume.
deer if we don't know you. If you become friends with us, we do help people out, but
We do ask that you bring the beer and you stick around and bullshit with us because we don't want it to turn into where someone drops the deer off, we leave and they pick it up. But I don't care if a buddy shoots a deer, he comes over with a case of beer and sticks around while we cut it up and bullshits and drinks with us because it's enjoyable for me, I guess.
a couple bush lattes while you're cutting deer.
Yeah. You throw a tenderloin on the grill, maybe the heart if you're into that, which you should be. Yeah, if you're not, start because
The heart's delicious.
Yeah.
We'll get into maybe that's it. We could do another episode coming up here soon on our favorite ways to cook different parts of the deer. It'd be a fun little episode.
yeah.
But let's get back
We could
into
even
it.
do a cooking show once I get my deer on opening day.
Like a live cooking show on.
I don't know if it'd be live, but
We could do
we'd
live.
film it live.
You could film it straight to YouTube live,
Yeah, we'll think
right
about
from the
it.
cabin.
We're throwing it out there. No
Peop-
guarantees.
If the people want it, we'll do it.
Yeah,
He'll do it with no shirt on.
yeah.
Okay,
If this video gets 50 likes, 50 shares, 50 comments,
that's never happened before.
there's your standards, people.
So let's get back into it here. You back your truck in. You hang, like I said, Tom, we're going to go through what we have at our station. Back your truck in. We're going to hook you up to the.
Back up.
Oh, my
Stop.
goodness.
You back your truck up. First thing you do is you get out your bone saw.
Nope. You know how technical you want to get? You want to put your truck in park before you get out?
No. Just leave it in gear.
All right, I'm just going to let you run through.
Yeah, you're not a dipshit, so you're gonna put your truck in park.
I'm going to put your
shut it.
seatbelt.
Yeah, unbuckle it, turn your headlights off, turn the key, all that good stuff.
Open the door, step out.
Walk around, slap the deer on the ass because you're pumped. You just shot a big buck, and
2 fist bumps in the air is definitely appropriate as well.
yeah, crack your bush latte, take a big old gulp.
Yeah, that is actually one thing. You got to have one beer in before you put it up on the crane.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a celebratory beer to get your photos.
Get a quick picture.
Yeah,
No, pictures are a big thing that I wish we used to do, like, better pictures back in the day. Because I have so many pictures of, like different bucks I've killed over the years where it's literally, like, me holding the rack and I just, like, took a picture with my phone or, like...
it's halfway skinned down, and you're like, oh shit, I forgot to take a picture.
Yeah.
So you
So
grab the head and half the meat's showing, and
yeah, and I think I just want to throw this out there that, like, when you kill a buck or a doe or something, take the time to pose with it and get a good quality picture that you're going to be able to look back and remember that hunt with.
well, another thing I want to mention, this is just something we all do. I think it's pretty cool. My dad learned this from Indian out west, turkey hunting. Bam was his name. But every time he would harvest or shoot, kill, whatever you want to call it, anything, he would take a pinch of tobacco and sprinkle it over the carcass of the deer. And it's a Native American tradition where it's, thanking the animal for that sacrifice and all that. So I always keep a bag of dry tobacco in my hunting bag. And anytime I, shoot a deer, a turkey, or whatever I'm hunting, I like to sprinkle tobacco on it and, pay my respects, thank the animal for, sacrificing its life so I can eat and my family can eat.
That's a good point too.
I'm not saying you have to do that, and if you don't do it, you're wrong.
It's just a neat thing we do.
Yeah, it's just another way to
Honor
thank the
the
animal and pay your respects. Because you did take a life, but, you get so much reward out of it. But that's just something I think is pretty cool, and I wanted to share with you guys.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
So back to it. I'll let you just run through. Lisa, we don't have to go into crazy detail.
You started it.
Well, yeah, people can fill in the blanks. But hit the the main points on going through the processing of the deer.
So you back your truck up, okay? Grab your bone saw and give the hind legs a little bend. Bend them back and forth. Find out where that knee is, and just above the knee, closer to its hoof, is where I like to, cut it off. So cut off the ankle, just above the knee. Well, actually, it would be just below the knee. Baloney.
I was going to say it.
But yeah, below the knee, above the ankle, hack it off. Do the same with the front legs, right below that. I don't know if it's a knee on the front, elbow, joint. Cut it off. Put the hooves and the shin bones in your bucket. And next thing I do is you go right to the pelvis, and you basically cut, from the inside of the groin all the way up to the top where you cut your ankle off.
On the inside.
Yeah, on the inside. Yeah, the groin.
Yeah, I'm just making sure that people understand that you stay on the inside of the leg all the way up to where you cut it off.
Yeah, so all the way up to the ankle on both sides. And then what I like to do is you pull the skin up, and you guys can't see my hand motions, but I'm trying to demonstrate here what to do. But you pull the skin up and cut it back. So you cut the
very
skin.
gingerly. You use your knife, and you run your knife right along the meat to where the meat is connected to the hide, and you just very carefully run your knife along that seam as you're pulling away the hide. And with a sharp knife, it'll go very smooth. Just careful not to poke through the hide or into the meat.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, you just peel the hide all the way around off the leg. That way it gives you something to grip onto and pull down on. You do that to both sides, and you pull it all the way down to below where their Achilles tendon is. And where that Achilles tendon connects back to the bone, that's where we put our meat hooks. So you got your legs skinned and peeled all the way back, and we put the hooks, right in the Achilles tendon. It's a perfect spot. It's not going to break loose on you. That's why you want to make sure you cut below the knee, because if you cut above the knee, then you're going to cut through that Achilles tendon, and then you're probably going to have to...
And that's a bunch of baloney.
Yeah. Probably going to have to be one of those guys that hang it from the head, because...
You don't want to be that guy.
No, you don't. So cut it all the way around, peel it down to expose the Achilles tendon and ankle and all that. Hook your hooks into that Achilles tendon and hoist it up. Get your 5-gallon bucket under the nose, because it's going to start dripping. And now your deer's hoisted up. And hoisted. And you got, your legs peeled back. And if you can, get a fresh deer, it's going to be 1,000 times easier than...
We'll just go through a good scenario of it.
Yeah, it's fresh deer. You grab onto the skin that's hanging down, and you can pretty much just pull it down. You'll be able to pull it to where the hide meets the tail. And you get your not so good knife, your dull knife. It's for it's a piece of shit. You don't really
Well, this is another tool that
snips. Yeah.
yeah, snips are another good tool. It's a good honorable mention. Have a pair of snips, snip through that little tendony, cartilage, bone-ish thing through the tail. Snip through
If you
that.
can get right into the knuckle of the tail where it moves up and down, you can get your knife in there,
Or
or
you
you
can
can be
pull a
like my
Mike
good buddy
Stringer.
Stringer. Yep, and skin the tail right out, so it kind of looks like a rat tail off your meat hanging there. But I wouldn't do that. I'd just hack the tail off, and then basically skinning the deer. It's pretty straightforward. You're just pulling down. If you have another guy there, that's awesome. That's a huge help. If you can have someone pulling the hide, you'll see, where the hide meets the meat. There's like that. It's all the best way to describe it's like a thin film almost that you just want to keep cutting along that, making sure you're not nicking the hide, not nicking the meat. You're just kind of right in the middle, and you just keep slicing as you got your buddy pulling down, or you pull down as far as you can, and then you got to go back up and slice. Either way, just keep pulling down and slicing until you're gonna get basically to the shoulders. And if you're mounting the deer, then
Take it as far as you can.
yeah, take it as far as you can. This is gonna get it's tricky on the shoulders too, or if you're mounting the deer, because you kind of got to cape it. If you're not mounting the deer, we'll just go that route, because basically if you're mounting the deer, you got to tube the whole thing and just keep slowly cutting down the shoulders and then to the legs, and it's a slow process, and you just got to be very careful making sure you're not nicking the hide. But if you're not mounting the deer, you get down to the front shoulders. Then what I like to do is cut right up from like the base of the neck all the way up the rib cage to where the hide's pulled down, and then just kind of butterfly the front chest open. Just keep pull one side and slice the hide back, and pull it, slice the hide back till you peel the front legs off, and then you're down to the neck, and pull that down as far as you can, because you want to get your good neck roast. And then bone saw comes into play again, or you cut through the spine, take the head off, and you got your hide and your head off to the side. And if it's a buck that you want to mount, make sure you're getting it either in the freezer or to the taxidermist as fast as possible. If you don't want it sitting there and rotting, and then you got to get a new hide, and it's just pain. So if you have access to a freezer, then get it in the freezer as soon as possible, or better yet, get it to the taxidermist as soon as possible. So now your hide's off, and it's time to start cutting up the goods. And here's how I like to start.
I think what we ought to do here, let's go through like getting like the cuts like you said, and then I think that'll probably be a good stopping point for this episode, and then we can do another episode on what to do with each of the cuts. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let me just say this. If given the opportunity to let your deer hang for a night,
If it's cold enough.
if it's cold, if it's below
Or if you have a
45
walk-in
degrees, or if you
freezer.
have a walk-in freezer, let it hang. What I like to do is take the front leg, kind of stretch it open, and put a couple cuts in there to open it up, let it air out a little bit, because
Take
usually
a bottle of wine, let it breathe.
no, yeah, I've never even heard that.
To let a bottle of wine breathe?
Yeah, I thought they were corked.
Yeah. When you're supposed to let them breathe before you drink them.
Oh, aerate it. Let it touch the roof of your mouth. Yeah, but just open, kind of right at the armpits. Slice the armpits back to pull the front quarters just a little bit. Give them a little space to breathe. And if you can let it hang overnight, if it's cold enough, or like Nick said, you got a walk-in freezer, that's huge, because it firms up a little bit. I think it tastes better. It takes some of that gamey taste out of it. It firms the meat up, cuts way better. It's just all around.
Firm meat's always better.
Yeah, firm, hairless meat.
Yeah. So break down the quarters and backstraps, tenderloins, and then we were not going to go into any details on what to do with each of them. And then, like I said, we'll do another episode on how to break down front quarters, hind quarters, what to do with each of them, back straps.
Okay, well, I'm going to just do a little bit of not what you said, because the first thing you're going to do once you get your deer hung...
Well, the tenderloins, that's a given.
Yeah, you open the armpits, and you cut out the tenderloins. And basically, you don't really even need a knife.
They pretty much pull out.
Yeah,
basically. Actually, I have proof that they do pull out.
Yeah, but what I do anyway is, at the top of the tenderloin, well, I don't know.
While it's hanging upside down, it's the top.
The top, yeah. Just make a slit right on top, and then you can take your pointer finger and just run it down behind it, and it basically just falls right out. And you're going to want to marinate that with some Jenny beer, garlic, salt, pepper, whatever seasonings you like, but definitely some Jenny beer. And heat up your grill, throw it on there real quick. I like to eat mine rare. You warm up the sides and slice it, into 1/4-inch thick pieces. And you got yourself a little congratulatory snack for your harvest. And we do the heart too. Basically the heart, you take your heart out and cut the top off where it's all like fatty and veiny and weird looking. And then you just slice the heart into, like another 1/4-inch or 1/2-inch thick slabs.
Like donuts, pretty much.
Yeah. And you just slice it right down to the tip and put your Jenny beer, your seasonings on there, put it on the grill. Yeah, but yeah, you cook it however you want, really. I don't give a shit. That's just how we do it. It's important that you're eating it, but that's not what this episode's about. This episode is about,
getting the cuts.
Yeah. So you got your deer hung, let it hang if you can. Open the armpits up if you're letting it hang. And so back to the cuts. First thing I do is the back straps. Best way to cut the back strap out is you'll see where the spine meets the hips. It makes kind of like a T. Cut straight across that seam, basically all the way around the hips. Take your knife and go straight down the spine all the way.
On both sides.
Yeah, on both sides, all the way down, basically to the neck.
Yeah.
And then what you're going to do is you'll have that, that 90 degrees where you cut from where the spine meets the hips, I guess. And basically what you do is you just kind of grab that and peel it back a little bit, and just same as taking the hide off. You just
run your knife along the back side.
Instead of
up
cutting,
against the ribs.
Yeah. Now instead of cutting, in between the meat and the hide, now you're cutting in between the
spine
meat and the bone.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just run your knife right along the edge of the bone, and just keep peeling it back, cutting, and you'll get these nice long steaks. I'm going to turn them into steaks, but
we'll get into that in another episode.
Yeah. So you get your back straps out. Next thing I like to do is the front quarters. Front quarters are super easy. You already aired them out with, slicing up the armpit a little bit. And you just basically, there's not really like a knuckle or anything that you have to cut out. You just keep slicing and keep cutting back, and it's just going to come off. So you just throw that on the table. It's easy peasy. And then what I like to do is take my bone saw again and cut where the spine and hips meet, and basically you're just cutting off the rib cage and spine and all that other stuff. So now all you got left hanging is the two hind quarters. And from there, what I like to do is take one hind quarter off the meat hook. So now you got, one hung up, one hanging. And this takes some skill, because basically you got a hind quarter, pelvis, hind quarter. And what you do is it's easy at first. You just cut, on the side of the pelvis on both sides.
I'm sorry, we had a guest over at the house. We had to step away. Did you talk about the little ball and socket joint? Is that what you're getting to?
Yeah, we're just getting into the hindquarters.
Just getting into the meat of it?
Yeah, we're just getting into the meat of it. But anyway, so yeah, we already mentioned it. Front quarters are off. You cut the midsection off, and now you just got your hindquarters hanging. You take one off the hook, so only one's hanging and the other one's kind of leaning. And you just cut, on the side of the pelvis, you'll cut down, and you'll follow the pelvis. It's kind of got a little curve to it. You just cut along that curve, and as long as you're feeling the bone on the edge of your knife, you're doing it right, and you're just going to cut down until you'll reach the knuckle. And it's like a ball and socket, and you kind of got to get in there, and
it'll actually twist out. A lot of times too, you can literally just like twist the hind quarter, and it'll pop. That's typically how I do it, because you'll ruin a lot of knives digging in that joint, because it's a really hard bone.
Yeah, but you gotta figure out what works for you to get that knuckle out of there, and then that one's gonna be free, and you just do the same thing on the other side. Put your your pelvis in the bucket with your rib cage and spine and hooves, and your deer is quartered, back straps are out, tenderloins are on the grill, and you're doing good.
You're enjoying a Bush Light,
yeah.
Maybe a Jenny if you have no taste. So while you're enjoying that tenderloin, thinking about what you want to do, you're going to tune in to the next segment of this episode, and we'll tell you exactly how to do whatever you want with the rest of the meat.
Yeah, if you have any questions between now and the next episode, feel free to shoot us a message, leave a comment or whatever, and we'll try and get it answered for you.
Yeah, if you've got any ideas like of different ways to process something, or if we rushed through a part of quartering them that you want to know more about, let us know.
I think what we'll do that'll help is when someone gets a deer this year, we'll make a video.
That would be really good.
Yeah, we'll make a video of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be filming our hunts. So you'll see, from waking up in the morning, drinking our Joe, driving out there, getting in, shooting the deer, the track, the drag, and then the processing. See it all.
So, what do you have to do in order to, go out there and get a buck on the ground, Tom?
Get outside.